Good evening, everybody. My name is Todd Scholl. I serve as the lead learner for the SCEA, Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. I'm so excited about the conversation we're going to have tonight. There's been a lot of talk about book bans and about the censorship that we're seeing across the state of South Carolina, really across the country. And a lot of adults are talking about this, but young people are too. And I think it's really important that their voices are included in the conversation, because ultimately the policies that we have around the books that are in our library impact our students the most. What they have access to, what they don't have access to, that impacts our students the most. So we felt like it was really important, and we connected with the folks at DAYLO. DAYLO stands for Diversity Awareness Youth Literacy Organization. And they're just doing some amazing work, and there's a lot of student leadership, and we wanted to bring some of those students on with us tonight to have that kind of conversation. Before we get started, I do want to just talk to you about a few things we have going on at CEWL and the SCEA. If you're not, first of all, kudos to Dr. Marcella Weinsnyder, who organized the first Teacher Induction Symposium that was held last Saturday in Columbia. And it was an outstanding event. Jed Derryberry was the keynote speaker, and it was just an amazing day of support for our induction teachers. And Dr. Weinsnyder did a remarkable job. And so many people, too many to list, supported us in setting up for the event and carrying out the event, and just an appreciation to everybody on the SCEA staff and to all of our friends and colleagues who assisted with that event. I also wanted to mention Dr. Weinsnyder's cool coaching that she's organized. And there's another cool coach that's not on this graphic. I need to update the graphic, but there's three coaches: Angie Brush, Dr. Weinsnyder, and Stephanie Johnson, who just joined us a couple of weeks ago. What they do is they do one-on-one coaching with induction teachers online through Zoom every Tuesday and Thursday night from 6 to 8 o'clock. And so these induction teachers can go on for free and get coaching from a veteran, outstanding teacher who can assist them with their needs. I also want to mention the Educator Mindfulness Retreat. We're about halfway filled with that already, and it's October. But June 12th through the 14th, Yelena Popovich and I will be facilitating the Educator Mindfulness Retreat. This is a secular science-based and trauma-sensitive retreat in Black Mountain, North Carolina. You can find out more on the CEWL website at cewl.us/retreat. And for those of you who are kind of like, well, I don't even know what that is, I'm not sure what a mindfulness retreat is and what would happen there. Yelena and I, on the 21st of November, are going to, from 7 to 8, are going to just cover kind of the basics of what happens at a mindfulness retreat, why it's beneficial, why you might want to consider signing up for something like that. So we hope you'll join us. I want to also give a shout out to some folks who joined the SCEA today. I was at the South Carolina Teacher Forum Conference that hosted by Sarah. We had Renee Atkinson there, who is the member of the SCEA and the State Teacher of the Year. We had Corey Johnson from Kershaw County joined our movement. We had Camille Richardson, who is the District Teacher of the Year from Anderson 5, and Cynthia Spears, the District Teacher of the Year from Spartanburg 3. So want to welcome all three of them into the family, into the SCEA movement today. So we are really super, super excited to bring on those teacher leaders, and we hope that more of those District Teachers of the Year will be joining the movement as well. So without further ado, let's bring on tonight's guests, the main performers, or the main sort of stuff going on tonight. Sorry, Claire. Tonight it's Patrick Good, Zoe Way, and Mary Ruff, and these are all students involved with DAYLO. And I want to just say first of all, welcome to the show. Second of all, thank you for standing up and for your leadership and your voice. I want to start off, and I'll just kind of start where I see the first person, with Patrick. Patrick, can you let people know what is DAYLO? What exactly is DAYLO?
DAYLO started as a book club. The founder actually started it due to their work with the Pat Conner Literary Center, and it was just made to be more inclusive, just creating an inclusive environment to create awareness and just spread awareness and diversity. But then Beaufort was faced with 97 book challenges, and DAYLO adapted to overcome those. DAYLO's always been a book club first and pro-literacy, not anti-censorship. But we've taken on the role of defending these books in the bans, and that has become one of DAYLO's major portions. For me, DAYLO personally is more of just a way for me to understand what it's like for as a straight white man in America. It's hard to really understand, and just discrimination of almost any kind with my background. So books are a platform for that, and that is why I joined DAYLO, and that is why I continue to defend the books in Beaufort and across the state.
I love that, Patrick, because I feel like I grew up in North Syracuse, New York, in a town called Liverpool. Actually, it was North Syracuse and Liverpool I grew up in, and predominantly white. And, you know, at that time, I didn't know anybody who was openly gay or non-binary or anything like that. I mean, and so I grew up with a sense of, I think, I didn't really understand the experiences of a lot of other groups, and it was through, you know, when I moved to South Carolina that changed some, and as I grew up and met more people that changed some. But it was books, it was movies, it was there were a lot of things that help bring awareness to my biases, my blind spots, the things that I wasn't aware of, and help me understand the perspective of other people. So I think that's really great that you recognize that the importance for us to have access to stories and ideas that represent other people's experiences, so that it helps inform our own, so we can be kind and compassionate, empathetic, understanding, and just navigate the world in a way that to me is just better. So thank you for saying that, Patrick. Zoe, talk a little bit about what some of the work that DAYLO's been doing, and why you think it's so important and critical at this time.
So one of the things that Patrick mentioned is that DAYLO is pro-literacy first. And so some of our biggest initiatives in all of the DAYLO chapters is reaching out to students not only in our schools, but younger students throughout the district. So one thing that we have been incredibly consistent with, and is one of my favorite things, events that we put on for the community, are our teddy bear picnics. So we gather at the Port Royal Farmers Market. In the past, it's been the first Saturday. We've started doing multiple Saturdays a month, and going out and reading to younger kids to encourage and promote their own literacy. As personally, I go to Battery Creek High School, and some of our literacy rates for our students are quite concerning. And so really instilling the love of reading and understanding why it's necessary, and teaching students how they can enjoy it from a young age will really help have a long-term effect on the performance of our students, not only when they get to high school, but as they become adults and enter the real world. Additionally, on the censorship side, a lot of DAYLO students have taken it upon themselves to go to school board meetings and speak up not only for themselves, but for their friends and family and community members, to make sure that not only our voices are heard, but the voices of people who can't speak for themselves are also heard, which again, I'm so proud of all of my fellow DAYLO members. I definitely look up to them, and I know that they have been an inspiration for even adults in the community as well, to really see students taking the initiative to speak out about things that matter.
I love that, Zoe, and I love that you have a focus on literacy and just trying to spread the joy of reading.
As discussed.
Oh, sorry, you froze on me for a second, and I think I interrupted you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, that's quite all right.
Go ahead. Finish what
So
you were saying. Sorry.
on the pro literacy side, um, DAYLO has gotten the opportunity, specifically through Jonathan Hopt, to speak to the authors of a lot of books. And so Battery Creek, for example, just received a visit from um, Homara Kaderi, and I hope that I'm pronouncing that right, who she came in to students at Battery Creek High School and gave her perspective.
Awesome. So what I was saying was I love the fact that you are, really trying to promote literacy and promote the love of reading, which is really important because books enrich our lives in so many different ways. Zoe, I want to ask you, and I'm going to ask Patrick and Mary this too, so you guys can have a little more time to think about this. But what's your favorite book? That's for Zoe. Zoe, what's your favorite book?
So,
You're thinking?
Oh my goodness. So that's a tough question for me because I like to skip around genres a lot. I think my Wi-Fi keeps going out. I have to look over at my bookshelf. One of the first I think real books that had content for me that I really enjoyed was The Giver by Lois Lowry.
Yeah. I'll ask you that, Patrick and Mary, in just a minute, but I want you to read the comment that Amy Trask has written. She said, just today, the school librarians in our county met and discussed the appreciation we have for the students of DAYLO. They've made a huge impact in Beaufort County. I hope that makes you feel proud of the work that you're doing, because what we see happening is some arguments for book bans is that it's about protecting kids, and I love the fact that you're taking that in a different direction. You say, yeah, we're trying to protect the freedom of kids who maybe aren't like us, and maybe who are in marginalized communities, or maybe who don't always feel represented or feel like included in our libraries, in our schools. And so standing up for them and advocating for them is so wonderful, and it seems like your work is really having an impact. So I appreciate that. I want to go to Mary. Mary, first of all, what's your favorite book?
That's a really hard question, because I could obviously say Harry Potter or something like that, which I love. But
Yeah.
I would probably say recently I read 1,000 Splendid Suns by the same author who wrote The Kite Runner. That book was really touching. I really liked that one.
Yeah, both books are amazing books. Great choices. So Mary, yeah, I know that you were founded as an organization around literacy, and that's important. But one of the things that we are really concerned about are these book bans, and the idea. One of the things I've said is you have some groups that claim that they're about freedom and liberty, and my argument has been that any parent already has freedom and liberty, because you can, as a parent, go into a school and tell the library, I don't want my child to have access to these particular books. So parents already have total and complete control over what their children read if they want to assert that control. Where it's not freedom and liberty is when you go to the school and say, I want you to take out this book, and now my 13-year-old daughter doesn't have access to that book because you didn't like it, because you object to it. That's taking away from my liberty, taking away from my freedom. So to me, these groups really that use those words in their names are really countering the actual meaning of those words. What are you seeing in terms of censorship that concerns you, and what can DAYLO do about that?
So, speaking on people trying to ban books, attending school board meetings, I see a bunch of different people on the side of pro-ban speaking in favor of this by just doing a lot of heinous things, reading rape scenes out in front of the whole entire school board, just very uncomfortable things like that. And I don't think there is much we can do to stop people like that. that's just kind of what they believe in. And it might be an excuse to privatize education. It might be an excuse to push their own religious. I don't really understand how these people think. We work to fight this by showing how we care so deeply about literacy as a whole and not about what they're doing. We work to speak about why it's important to us. We do these events such as the Teddy Bear Picnic to show to kids why literacy is important. So I think we work against the book banning by showing why literacy is important to us and why the book banners aren't as important to us.
Yeah. What do you when you read, say, the Harry Potter? I assume you read all the whole Harry Potter series.
Yes.
When you read a really good book that speaks to you, how does that change you as in the trajectory of your life? Like, how does that impact you moving forward when you read a good book like A Thousand Splendid Suns or the Harry Potter series?
It definitely opens my eyes. With A Thousand Splendid Suns, I don't have any close Muslim friends, so being able to see the aspects of their own religion, seeing all the awful persecution these characters went through in that book, it definitely opened me up to different cultures, different religions. We're just reading a book about gender fluidity and grief in a family in our own DAYLO chapter at my high school, and seeing these different genders, sexual orientations, something that I personally can't relate to, being a minority in. It just opens my eyes and makes me have more empathy towards these different people and what they go through.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a good thing, right? I mean, it's probably a good thing for us to at least understand the perspective of other people. So, just like you, when I read Kite Runner and I read A Thousand Splendid Suns, I really didn't know much about Afghanistan. I knew that the Soviets had invaded at one point. I knew that the United States had gone in after 9/11, but I didn't really understand much about the history. And we have a tendency to kind of oversimplify the narrative around a group of people without really digging in to understand that there's in Afghanistan they've been through so much, and there's such a diverse range of people with different beliefs. They don't all believe the same thing, and so when we read a story about someone from Afghanistan, and another book that comes to mind is Persepolis, about this young woman in Iran. I think this is so helpful because there's a tendency in the media and a tendency in the American zeitgeist to kind of lump everybody from a country together and think they all think the same way, that all the people from Iran or all the people from Afghanistan or all people who are this or that all think the same way. And so I'm like you. Like, when I read a book about an experience that I've never been through, like Persepolis, like A Thousand Splendid Suns, it really helps me understand that those people are just humans like us. Like, that's the common humanity that we have across countries, across religions, across race, across gender and sexual orientation. We all have a common humanity. We all get sad and angry and excited and happy and disappointed, and we have tragedy and we have success, and and seeing that common humanity is so important in cultivating peace and cultivating understanding between us. So thank you for that.
Definitely.
Mary.
I learned a lot, like history wise too. I had to look up things while reading that book. It gave me a lot more knowledge than I would have gotten in the classroom.
Awesome. Thank you, Mary. Patrick, what's your favorite book? You haven't answered that yet.
I'm gonna go into a story.
Okay.
So with DAYLO, and Zoe knows it. Okay. My grandmother has read every single DAYLO book with us. And then whenever I go, my grandmother lives like 30 minutes, and my sister plays club soccer, so I often spend the weekends with my grandparents, and we'll just have like a 3-hour long discussion about whatever book we're reading in DAYLO, and it's fabulous. And then we agreed on everything. Everything was amazing. My grandmother isn't the traditional, very, very conservative, stuck in their ways grandmother, and I'm thankful for that. Until we started reading The Bluest Eye, and she just thought it was very dark. And it is a very mentally taxing book. You just need time to decompress in between it. It's not one of those books that you can just pick up and read the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we kind of disagreed over it. She thought it was a little too dark. I thought that it highlighted some communities very well. And then about 2 weeks after we finished the book, my mom teaches at a Title I school, and one of her students was raped. And the student actually came to her. It was an ongoing thing. And then after that, my mom had applied for foster care, but then the application system took too long. And I felt like it was really eye-opening in terms of the way that we kind of like have tunnel vision in our community, because the student and the community that my mom's student was from, my grandmother passes on her drive to the grocery store every single day, or every time she goes to the grocery store, every time she leaves her house, she's going to pass by it. And it's just not something you think of. We kind of just like isolate ourselves in our community and don't expand outside of them, so we don't really know what's going on outside our socioeconomic classes.
Right.
And I think being at the private school in Beaufort, that is very isolating in terms of socioeconomic status. Our class is almost predominantly white. The one non-white student we have is a foreign exchange student from Sweden, which is very unrepresentative of Beaufort as a community. And I think kind of reading that book kind of like opened my eyes to maybe, I do have tunnel vision. I'm kind of isolating myself in one community.
Right.
And it wouldn't necessarily be my favorite book that I enjoyed the most, but it is the book that's affected me the most. So that's why I kind of talk about that one.
That's a powerful story. And and I think it's such a great thing that to have these kind of conversations, to read a book and with a parent or with a grandparent, and to be able to have these conversations around these books rather than just saying, no, we're going to ban it and not look at it. It's like, we can disagree. We can read the same book and have different reactions to it and different ideas about it and discuss it. And to me, some of the best books are the ones that bring about those kind of conversations where like we don't see eye to eye, but how can we talk about this together and try to at least understand where we're coming from around that book. I want to ask you, Patrick, because you mentioned earlier about the importance for reading to sort of get outside of your own bubble, and you kind of mentioned it again. And one of the things that we hear from people on the sort of the banning side is that we can't have these books that make white kids feel guilty about racism, which is a weird thing to say, and kind of betrays kind of like why would you feel guilty about reading a story about say the Klan or about a lynching or something like that? Why would you feel guilty about it? You didn't commit it. Why? Just because there are characters who are white who are committing acts of violence and who are being racist in it doesn't mean that I have to take ownership, but it does mean I need to be reflective about it and sort of figure out, where are there some biases within me? Where are there some work? There's some work that I need to do on race? What kind of stereotypes or prejudices am I maybe holding on to, and illuminating that so that I can root it out? But Patrick, when you hear that kind of thing about white guilt, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, my first, most basic, really uncensored idea is just people are playing a victim syndrome. But I feel like it's the exact opposite of what we need to be doing. And it just proves that people who are doing this aren't actually reading the books. They are getting the exact opposite of what the book is giving to them. It's helping them gain empathy. It's helping them gain just the ability to understand what other people are going through. and then they just immediately take that and get rid of it. And I don't know how you can read a book about the struggle of somebody else and then make it feel like that's your problem and that you're being kind of portrayed as like the villain of some sort.
Right.
It's very weird to try to think like somebody in Moms for Liberty or other groups or somebody just pushing the bans. I don't understand it. That's the simplest way to put it. It's a very, very different mindset than what I have.
I watched the movie Mississippi Burning when I was just a little bit older than you. I think I was about 18 years old when I first saw that movie. A very graphic portrayal of racism and violence. A great movie. And I remember I didn't feel guilty, but I did feel quite angry. And the more I learned about the brutal conditions that people endured, and the racism, the lynching, and when I learned about Emmett Till, and when I learned about the Tulsa Massacre, things of that nature, I didn't take on guilt. I took on an anger and a desire to ensure that we continue to develop and progress to root out racism and ensure something like that, ensure those things don't happen again, and ensure where racism still exists, that we work on that together to ensure that everybody has access to freedom and access to being free of fear and not having to continue to deal with racism. And the idea that racism somehow, I don't know if these people think it disappeared when Obama was elected or what. It's strange to me. It's strange to me that there's almost like a phobia around talking about racism. Like they think if we just don't talk about it, then it goes away. And I think that's just kind of like, well, it doesn't affect me, so why are we still talking about this? I think is maybe the mentality, and it's quite frustrating. Zoe, I want to ask you about the other piece that we see on this. We see it usually the book bans are around like books on that deal with race, or books that deal with sexual content, sexual orientation, and gender identity, things like that. And one of the things we hear from these book banners is that that in education somehow, if we include a book that has a trans character or a person of a different orientation, that we're trying to groom you, or that there's a grooming that's taking place, which is insane to me. But when you hear that kind of argument, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, first, I always find it really interesting that grooming is sort of the first place that a book banner's mind goes, especially because in this context, usually grooming would have something to do with sexualizing children, or something in that area, and it's almost concerning to me personally, for people to hear these stories that talk about communities that don't often get the same coverage, where there's certain struggles that a person might have to go through, obstacles that they face, and the first place that an adult's mind goes is you're sexualizing them, and you're trying to sexualize our children, just because that's not what these books are about. These books that were challenged were not pornographic, and there's definitely something going on if someone sits down and reads. There's a deeper issue if somebody sits down and reads a book like The Perks of Being a Wallflower and thinks that is a step-by-step guide on how to rape somebody and do drugs and attempt suicide, because that's obviously not the point of the story. And so to take that book out of a library because it has those themes. To me, just I don't quite understand it. And something that Patrick said during one of the school board meetings was that how is it that a student can go through these life experiences but they can't read about them? It's
Right,
not
right.
unrealistic that students come from a marginalized community, or that they um, have endured some sort of sexual abuse or have witnessed it in their family or their friends. And books, again, they open up a way for people to process and to
Beautiful.
build their empathy as well. Um,
Oh,
so
I
for
mean,
me,
that's an amazing
I
way.
just,
That's an amazing way to put it. I think that's such a great point. The ability to process. It's because it's not just about, let me let me let me sort of see what somebody else, another human being's going through, so that I can better understand it. It's also, what is this what is this character going through that is very similar to what I've gone through, and so that I feel like I'm not the only one who's experienced something like that. I'm not the only person, that somebody else has had this very similar feeling, so I don't feel so isolated and alone in the world. I think I read Catcher in the Rye when I was probably around your age, and Holden Caulfield was having a lot of the same type of thoughts that I was having about, like, the phoniness of the world and just not feeling like really connected. And so when I read that story, it helped me feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone in thinking this way. So that's a really beautiful way of putting that, Zoe. Thank you so much. Mary, I wanted to ask you. Uh, Zoe mentioned, one of you said something that was really good about how, when the folks banning books go to, maybe it was you, Mary, that when they go to the school board meeting, they'll read an excerpt, and it will be like the worst excerpt, the worst piece of the book, and that really does such a disservice to pull out. I made the comparison. There's a movie called Oppenheimer that came out, and there was a sex scene in it. It was very short, but if you pulled that movie out and you showed it to everybody and you said, "This is what Oppenheimer is about," you would think it was a movie about, you know, sex, and it wasn't. It was a movie about Oppenheimer, and Oppenheimer was a human who, had a sexual relationship. Um, when when people pull out excerpts from a book and then mischaracterize the book as being pornographic, how does that make you feel? How do you react to that or respond to that?
Yeah, I could definitely talk about this. So a lot of book banners love to deem these books that they read aloud as pornography, which I think is extremely inappropriate, especially because pornography is defined as like experiencing sexual pleasure. And a lot of these books that they're reading about have rape scenes in them with strong negative connotations in like
Mm,
the book. I know someone in the chat mentioned Push, and then I also read what was it called? Damsel, both books on the banned book list that have rape scenes in them and strong negative connotations around the book and really awful experiences, which many children go through similar circumstances growing up, and they deem them as pornography, which is just, it makes me mad. Like, it's very upsetting that people deem these as sexual pleasure. They cherry
right.
pick them, read them out loud, which could be very traumatizing for some people. And yeah, and the idea that kids should not be exposed to this, and Zoe mentioned this earlier, a lot of them are. Seeing this in books with negative connotations might help a kid realize, oh, this is happening to me at home. This is happening to me at school. This isn't a good thing. This is bad. So
Right.
people saying that there's such a bad thing about these books that could potentially help a lot of kids, it makes me upset. It's upsetting. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I heard, and I'm going to let any of you kind of can jump in on this. So I went and spoke with a school librarian. This was a few months ago, and he was very concerned, scared to speak up, but very concerned about the fact that not only books were being banned, but that books were being put in a restricted section. So they may still be technically in the library, but they have to go to a restricted section. And he said this was one thing he noticed was that this was happening to books with trans characters. And so what was happening is you'd have these books with trans characters, and then you would have a student who's trans come into the library and ask for the book and say, I want to check out this book. Where did it go? I can't find it. And then he has to say, it's in the restricted section. And then well, why is it in the restricted section? And then what can happen is there's this idea that this person's identity is something to be restricted and censored and puts in a special compartmentalized place to keep everybody else safe from that identity. And the damage that this does to trans students is to me such a horrible thing. Just the horrible idea of making them, like, othering them and making them feel even further ostracized, and the damage that this can do to the psyche of a young person who's probably already struggling because of the way society has a conversation around being transgender. When you hear a story like that, how does that motivate the work that you do at DAYLO? Any one of you can jump in on this.
Personally, I have a classmate who is trans, and seeing firsthand some of the struggles that can come from that, from other schoolmates, teachers, staff members, their own family life. Well, let me preface this by saying that Battery Creek, and I'm not aware of any other Beaufort County School District library having a restricted section. I actually wasn't even aware that that was something going on in high school libraries. So that's a bit of a shock for me. And I can't imagine what it would be like to try and, find a book that you relate to, and being like, oh my goodness, like my library actually has this book. And first of all, being excited that your library has that book. And then going and finding out that it's in an area that you can't easily access, and that's not the only book with similar themes in that restricted section. I can only imagine the betrayal of that from the school and the library, and the district that's requiring that of the high school. So, I mean, my initial thoughts on that are just like, can you imagine if somebody did that with a Christian book? Like somebody like puts the Bible in the restricted section.
Right.
Because ultimately everybody should be able to access books that reflect their identity, that promote critical thinking and understanding, and nothing relating to a student's identity should ever be categorized as restricted or sensitive.
Patrick or Mary, do you want to comment on that?
I think she summed it up very well, so I don't think I have anything to say, but Patrick.
I think like with specifically trans students, they have enough going on and enough making them feel ostracized just from peers and other students that we don't need to add more to that. And especially with adults, they are supposed to be the people that are helping raise the next generation. And if we go to class and we learn about bullying, they'll tell us exactly what it is. It's like helping people feel when it's happening, help them feel more accepted, help them understand what they can do. And then I've heard specific people that are in support of these books and parents and like I've heard their opinions about bullying and that we just need to support those kids and help them through it. And then they'll be in the support of a book, which is essentially a form of bullying that student. It is making them feel ostracized. It is making them feel like they're not accepted. And it feels like a very hypocritical situation.
Yeah, absolutely. What have we not talked about tonight that's weighing on your mind? Or are there questions I asked somebody else that you would like to answer? I just want to kind of make sure that we cover all our bases. What are some things that you would like to talk about that we haven't talked about yet, or that you haven't talked about yet?
With these books, and like we mentioned before, with like some movies about lynching and like Black history, and just with specifically like one of the books we read at DAYLO, We Are Not Free by Tracy Chee, is about the Japanese internment camps, which aren't taught very often. I think as a country, we need to own our history a lot better. We have a student that lived in Germany for multiple years, and he had a very extensive World War II union, and they've done a very good job of owning their history, explaining that they were wrong, explaining just what happened, and owning it. And in America during World War II, with our Japanese internment camps,
Right.
specific counties and some states have tried to push legislature to completely ban the subject. They've gone to textbooks asking it to be removed, politicians specifically. And then it's a part of American history. It happened during World War II. By definition, the Japanese internment camps do fit the definition of concentration camps. They happened during World War II, and we are very, very happily able to teach World War II and say that Nazi Germany was 100% wrong, but we aren't able to own the fact that we also messed up. And another very famous example, the Runette Dome, where we put a bunch of nuclear waste into an island and then just didn't want to spend the money sealing it, so we let all of this nuclear waste seep into the ocean, killing hundreds of Japanese fishermen.
Yeah, I definitely think it's becoming more of, we're kind of forgetting the point of history classes. It's to learn from our past mistakes and prevent them from happening in the future. And by being quiet about all these, like the Japanese internment camps and whatnot, this could happen again, and people wouldn't bat an eye.
Yeah. I love, Patrick, I love the way you talk about. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Zoe. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I
Something that
think
you
something's
said
happened.
earlier.
There's a delay. And go ahead.
That would be on my end, probably. Something that you said earlier actually really struck me. It was reflection over ownership. And so when you were discussing white guilt, and your experiences with that, how you saw sort of a reflection, but you didn't feel like you were the one responsible for it. And I think that that's really in line with what Patrick and Mary have also both said. With having these situations and these discussions, like the Japanese internment camps, for example, that's not necessarily something that we need to guilt all of our students who had family members who served during World War II. We're not looking to make you guys feel bad for what your grandparents did.
Right.
It's, this happened to this group of people for this reason, and here's why that's not acceptable, and making sure that people know just the ins and outs of those sorts of situations, so like Mary said, this doesn't happen again. And I have noticed like that's something I believe my AP US history class spent maybe 10 minutes discussing before moving on to the rest of World War II. And so I think that also goes to show that it goes beyond sort of even a high school or a district or even state standard for teaching these sorts of subjects, because that's a private organization that is creating a curriculum that teachers are responsible for communicating to their students. And even an organization like that is not going in depth at what is supposed to be college level class on these subjects, and really making sure that they're educating their students with a holistic view of American history.
Gosh, that's wonderful. Thank you, Zoe. And thank you, Patrick, for talking about owning it. This is where I think people get the definition of patriotism mixed up, and they think of patriotism as only saying good things about the country and only looking at the good things that our country has done. And yes, there is a pride in, you can have a pride in American history and in America, but you can also avoid the trap of falling into being a propagandist, which is where you're only going to look at the positives of America, and you're only going to allow students to learn about the positive things that happen because you don't want to be negative. And that's actually, to me, anti-patriotic and anti-American, because if you are patriotic and you really love a country, just like if you really love a relative or you love yourself, yes, you build up and you look at the good things, but you also examine and are willing to have honest conversations about what went wrong and what we can do better. And not just the Japanese internment camps, but I'm thinking about the genocide of indigenous people, and the brutalization of 400 years of enslaved people, and the continued Jim Crow laws even after they were supposedly freed. And the continued bigotry and racism and sexism and homophobia and transphobia that continues to exist in this country. We can do better, and talking about it with young people and educating young people to talk about it honestly shouldn't be seen as problematic. That is what an education is for, so that the future of America is better. So if you love America, you want to, just like if you're a Gamecock or a Clemson fan, you don't just look at the highlight reels. You look at, where did we not block? Where did we not tackle? Where did we run the wrong routes? Where did we make mistakes? So that next week when we play, hopefully we can clear up those mistakes. We do this in almost everything else, but when it comes to American history, there's this cadre of people who think that it's anti-American or unpatriotic to talk about exactly what you're referencing here, all these things, all these mistakes and horrors that have happened throughout our history. And books, whether they're history books or novels that talk about these things, are an essential part of us growing as a country and thriving and succeeding for everyone. And so I just want to say, I want to kind of echo what Cindy Fisk says, and that is that all three of you and the work that you're doing really instill me with hope. You're three really, really intelligent and vibrant young people who I think are wise beyond your years, and are going to lead us out of what I feel like is kind of a weird period in America right now. It's just a weird time. But you give me faith. Your generation gives me hope that we can tap into this wisdom that you've exhibited tonight, and kind of move on from this kind of crazy era of, trying to pull us, almost like there's these people trying to pull us backwards. And here you are, the three of you, trying to say, no, our generation is not going to let you pull us backwards. We're moving forwards. If you want to go backwards, you go and do that yourselves. But as a country, together, we're moving forward. And I just want to say, again, like I said in the beginning, thanks to each one of you for doing this. It would be easy for you just to go and be in your own bubble and just do your own have your own social life. And hopefully you do that, take time for that too. But for you to take time to actually stand up for justice, to stand up for what you feel is right, to stand up for freedom and liberty, to stand up for your fellow students, even the ones who aren't in your schools, is such an admirable thing. And I hope that your DAYLO will continue to grow, and that folks who are watching, who want to start a DAYLO chapter, will reach out and contact your organization to figure out how they can do that, because we need this kind of movement that you've started to spread throughout the state and really across the country. Before we leave, do you have any final things that you'd like to share with us tonight?
I'd just like to thank you for being an incredible host and asking great questions and making this conversation very easy and very natural.
Yes, this has been really great. I think one thing that's important about DAYLO is we're here and helped a lot by our advisors and that all of the adults helping us, but we're also here on our own account, and this is very important to all three of us, preserving diversity in literature. But I know one of our advisors probably would want us to talk about our human library project, and I think Zoe can probably talk about that more than I can.
Okay, so go for it.
Thanks, Mary. So the human library is a concept, I believe, out of Sweden, somewhere in that region, if not, where community members are invited into a space to really discuss, anything. It could be their personal obstacles, their careers, their general life experiences. And so the concept is, each person who goes in there as a speaker is called like a book, and every book has their story. And I was introduced to this concept through the Pat Conroy Literary Center's Beaufort Human Library a couple of years ago. And I was so inspired by this concept. Obviously, I'm a reader and I'm very passionate about books and people's stories. And so I decided that I wanted to see a high school version. And so I took the initiative and the advice that Jonathan gave me. And he is such an incredible resource. He knows so many incredible community members, and he helped get me in touch with the people that I needed to be in touch with. And so essentially what I did, I took all this advice and what I learned about the human library, and I got a group of community members together to have small group discussions with students at my high school about their careers, any obstacles that they faced. And we did really have a wide variety. We had military members, artists, small business owners, and the list really goes on because no person is just one thing. And so what's really unique about this experience is that each small group is different. And so these groups of students, first of all, the students get mixed around, so they're not with the same group the entire time. And each group discussing or having a conversation with one of these books or community members, each discussion is different because, the makeup and the ecology of the group itself is different. And so students, through this program, which I've now hosted it twice at my high school, we're in the process of planning the third one this spring. And I'm currently training some of my underclassmen to learn how the program is organized so that it lives on when I graduate. And so one of the really empowering things about this event is that students get to connect with potential professionals in a field that they might be interested in. They get to learn how to have a conversation with a successful adult, and they really get to be inspired by these community members who have accomplished so much, and really learning and growing through these conversations and gaining those necessary and honestly vital life skills of having having professional conversations, listening to other people, and gaining empathy or understanding from that person's background. And I did just mention that that was the first one, which was in spring of 2023, and our most recent one was October 4th, 2023, and again we'll have a spring edition as well. So it's been highly successful. I've gotten a lot of really great feedback from both the community members, our students, our administration at Battery Creek, of how we can really continue to improve this program and make sure that it's benefiting the most people as possible. And it's been a really great learning experience for me as well.
That's amazing. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you for sharing that. I do have two other quick questions. I know we're running out of time. One is, I have heard that there are people without substance to the arguments have to try to find ways to make their side sound better. And one thing that I've heard is that, oh, well, these kids from DAYLO, they're just puppets, and the adults are just telling them what to say. And I think you've proven tonight, and there's no earpieces with adults. You're not going, what do I need? How do I need to answer this question? So I thought hopefully tonight's made that abundantly clear. But when you hear that kind of thing, what is your pushback? What is your response to that, from hearing that you're somehow puppets for some people, adults who are trying to get you to make some political points or whatever?
I definitely think they're just facts, like that they don't push us to do things, especially in my chapter at Beebert High. We make sure everyone's comfortable about talking about whatever subject we're talking about. We, if anytime we bring up advocacy related to DAYLO, not just pro-literacy, we make sure to say, if you're interested in that, like, contact us after the meeting. We can meet up later. If you're interested in going to a school board event, contact us. If you need any help writing something that you want to present at a school board meeting, contact us. We try to make it as comfortable for people as possible, trying to not push our own opinions onto other people. And I genuinely just don't feel as though adults' opinions are pushed onto me. I think I'm at the age where I can make my own opinions and not be told that adults are telling me. Yeah.
Absolutely. You all have made it clear tonight that you're able to formulate and articulate your own opinions. So I appreciate that. I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about that, because it's such a ridiculous argument.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people say that.
The last thing I want, well, that's what they do. Anytime a young person has something important to say, they just assume, and you don't like it, then they'll say, oh, well, they're just puppeting, and they're puppets for some nefarious reason or something like that. But it's ridiculous. Anyway, I just wanted to make that point clear in case anybody hears about that. But the last thing is more of like sort of logistics. If there's a young person out there watching this, or a teacher from another district, and they don't have a DAYLO chapter, is there any instructions you can give them, or advice for how they can start a DAYLO chapter? Is there a website they can go to? Who can they contact?
Personally, I think the first contact would be any DAYLO heads or Jonathan Haupt. Going back to DAYLO's history, we've always had an amazing history with the Pat Conner Literary Center, or just any of the DAYLO heads. Miss Bennett is the head of our DAYLO, but Beaufort High or Battery Creek across South Carolina. Now we're in Charleston and hopefully Columbia. So we're growing. We're leaving Beaufort, which is great, and we're becoming the Charleston DAYLO. Just spoke at their first board meeting a couple weeks ago, and it was great to see that. Just to see them being active in their advocacy, but specifically getting involved with DAYLO, just reaching out to any of us, any of the students, the heads, on every DAYLO individual has their own Instagram. Just DM any of them. We are nice people. We do not bite. And we will try to accommodate you in any way possible.
No, definitely. I'm sure if anyone reaches out, like by Instagram DM or Facebook message, we could easily do something like we're doing right now, Zoom them, talk to them about DAYLO and how to start it up at their own school.
And we need it everywhere. And I know Jonathan's watching, and I know Claire's sort of in the backstage. I want to thank both Jonathan and Claire for the work they're doing behind the scenes, and also want to thank like Josh Malcolm from ACLU and a lot of folks, Tamara Cox, who's watching tonight, and the folks from SCAT, the South Carolina Association of School Librarians. So many amazing people that are supporting. But I think, the voice of youth is so powerful. Your voices are, I don't know if I hope you're aware of how powerful your voices are. You're so smart and just cut right to the truth of all of it. And we desperately need your voice to counterbalance some of the craziness that's showing up at some of these school board meetings, and sometimes is successful in getting policy changes or removing books. And I think your voices are incredibly powerful in countering that. So again, thank you so much for having the courage to speak up, for having the energy that you're bringing to this work. It's so important, and I want to just encourage all of you to continue doing that, and to encourage your classmates and your friends to do the same thing. So we're going to close out, but again, thank you so much for your time tonight, and thank you for what you're doing. All right, everybody, that was Patrick, Mary, and Zoe from DAYLO, which is the Diversity Awareness Youth Literacy Organization. I don't know about you, but I'm just, man, that is like, I feel great. Like that was the dose of hope that I kind of needed, because it's been a rough year or two here with all this stuff going on. And if that's the generation that's coming along, I feel really good about where we're heading. Maybe we're in a dark chapter of this book right now, but wow, it looks like the next chapter that we're about to open up is going to be powerfully light and wonderful and full of love and compassion and kindness and empathy. And again, thanks to those 3 students, and to all the folks at DAYLO, all the students at DAYLO. If you're involved in DAYLO and you're watching this, I just want to thank you for the work you're doing, and hopefully we can bring some more DAYLO students on. And Jonathan, one of the advisors, mentioned in the comments here. So if you're following on Facebook, you can go click this, go over to Instagram.com/Buford_DAYLO. I want to thank Amy Trask for watching. Cindy Fisk, thank you so much for watching. Amazing. And thanks to all of you who are watching and who tuned in tonight and participated through the comments. It's really important that we have those comments coming in. These students need to be given as much positive reinforcement and compliments for what they're doing. It's amazing stuff they're doing. And it takes a lot of courage when you're that young to go to a school board meeting and to speak up about these controversial issues, and they do it so well. I love it. So thank you so much to them. Thank you for tuning in. I do want to mention that we are here because of the South Carolina Education Association, the SCEA, the only union for educators in the state of South Carolina, and the only association doing things like you're watching tonight. We're the only association that I'm aware of standing up against censorship, standing up against these book bans. We're the association leading the way against private school vouchers. We're the association leading the way on racial and social justice issues. We're the association leading the way on LGBTQ advocacy. We're leading the way, but we need more people in our movement, because the more people who are in our movement, the more powerful we can be, the more we can do together. We're stronger together. That's our motto. We're stronger together. When we come together under a union, we can make things happen. We stay divided and all we're going to do is just buy cheap insurance. We're not going to get much done. And we're going to continue to see teachers exploited and public education under attack. And those attacks are going to continue to be victorious. It's time to stand up for public education. And the way to do that is through the South Carolina Education Association. So if you're watching tonight, I'm personally inviting you to be a part of this movement. You can do that. Look at the bottom of your screen. You can join the movement by going to jointhescea.org, or you can text the word join to 48744. We would love to have you. If you have questions, you can reach out to me on Facebook. You can find me. I'm easy to find. Todd Scholl. I'm like Dion. You know where to find me. I'm easy to find. Ask me the questions that you have. What are the benefits? I'll tell you. How much does it cost? We'll talk about that. Why should you be a part of the movement? I'll tell you why. But we need, and you don't have to be a public educator. You can if you're not in education, you can get an associate membership to the SCEA. So we need all hands on deck to move this movement forward, to protect public education, to protect students like the ones you saw tonight, to protect teachers and bus drivers and custodians and everybody who works in a school building. They deserve to be paid, because the work that they do is important. They shouldn't have to take on 2-3 extra jobs to make ends meet. And they deserve reasonable working conditions, a reasonable workload. They deserve to have support from their administration, not to be gaslighted by and bullied by administration, which happens in too many schools. They deserve to have a system of education that's reflective of what it takes to create human flourishing. And under the test and punish paradigm that we live, it creates a toxic culture where the test scores dictate almost everything. And that creates this toxic culture that dehumanizes both teachers and students. And it all comes from our devotion to standardized test results. I'm convinced that until we get rid of standardized testing, or at least the overemphasis on standardized testing, that we will continue to have the problems that we have in education. We got to pay teachers, treat them well, get rid of testing, and protect freedom and protect diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are not bad words. Those are good things, because that is patriotism. That's what patriotism is. Imagining a better America and doing the things that we need to do to get there together. That's patriotism for me. So, okay. Yeah. Thanks so much for everybody tuning in. I'm going to close out. The next scheduled live stream is going to be on the 16th. We're going to have members of SCEA. They used to be called SCORE. These are our early career folks who are going to come on and have a conversation about what it's like to be in the early part of their career. They're amazing. They've got so much energy, so much passion. Can't wait to have that conversation. That'll be on the 16th of November at 7 o'clock. And then on the 21st, Yelena Popovich and I are going to be on talking about the mindfulness retreat that we're going to be hosting this June 12th through the 14th. So the live stream will be the 21st from 7 to 8, where we talk about that and answer all your questions about what the retreat's about. And then the retreat's actually June 12th through the 14th. By the way, that retreat is $150 for members of the SCEA. It is $250 for non-members. You have to be a public school educator, but that what we mean by educators, anybody who works in a public K-12 school in South Carolina is eligible to come to this retreat. If you're a member, it's $150. Non-members, $250. That includes 3 days, 2 nights of accommodations in a cabin, really nice cabins in Black Mountain, North Carolina. All your meals, snacks, a book, yoga sessions, meditation sessions, everything for $150. So if you're interested, you can go to the website, cool.us/retreat. And everything that we do at Cool is housed on the Cool website at cool.us. So we encourage you to go to that website, spread it, help us spread the word about Cool and the SCEA, because we believe that we are the movement that is going to protect public education and move it forward in South Carolina. Thanks again for tuning in tonight. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. You can find my contact information on the Cool website. We will see you a week from today. And you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I will be back at the South Carolina Teacher Forum Conference tomorrow, working with us District Teachers of the Year, and really excited about that, and also excited about